Hi everyone! In this video, I'm going to show you the different brush handling techniques for oil painting. This also applies to acrylic painting as well. There are a number of factors why paintbrushes create so many endless possibilities, and they are the bristle type, the way you hold the brush, the different brush shapes, and the brush size. In this video, I'm going to show you the different bristle types and how to hold the brush. Now I won't go over the different brush shapes and brush sizes because you can still achieve the same results that I'm about to demonstrate regardless of the shape and the size of the brush. Without further ado, let's get started.
There are two main types of brushes in painting, hard and soft bristle brushes. The stiff bristle brushes are mostly made from animal hairs like hog. They hold more paint and also hold their shape while painting. Because they are more stiff, they allow more precise and bold marks for painting. The second type, the softer bristle brushes, mainly made from nylon, polyester, or sable, paints a lot smoother with cleaner strokes, which are great for rendering details and painting clean lines. I won't go over the details of the different brush shapes, but if you are just starting off, I would recommend sticking to the filbert brush as they are the most versatile in painting organic objects. You can paint large areas, draw lines, dots, and different shapes with a filbert brush. Choose 2 large and 2 small filberts, so when you're working on an area, you can focus on a dark and a light, working your way from big to small.
How you hold the brush and where on the handle that you hold it can yield many different possibilities. A mistake that a lot of artists make is holding their brush the same way throughout all their paintings, and their paintings end up looking very static, where there's no contrast between loose and bold marks and tight and small details. The key is that the closer you hold your brush to the bristle, the more control you will have on the fine details. And vice versa, when you hold your brush further back, you're able to create more bold and assertive lines, which are best for sketching out masses of shapes.
Holding the brush near the end. This is usually best applied with a stiff bristle brush, where you're holding it like a magic wand for bold paint marks. This is great for line control and allows you to focus on the proportions and angles of what you're painting. You're using your whole arm, and some artists even prefer standing, to be able to capture the full image of what they're painting. You're really sculpting an image onto your canvas. Holding the brush near the middle. Now this can be a hard or soft bristle brush. When you're holding it near the middle of the handle, you're also focusing on the proportions and lines, but with a lot more control. You can hold it like a pencil or a wand. The wand grip allows you to maintain that control over proportions and angles, where the pencil grip allows you to focus on the details. Your arm is stabilized and your movement comes from your wrist. Holding the brush close to the bristles. This is typically with a soft bristle brush, where you're holding it like a pencil and focusing on the fine details, precise marking, and rendering. This is the most intuitive for most people because it's similar to how we write. One thing to keep in mind is not to start your painting with this grip because you always want to paint from big to small. As a tip for stabilizing while you're rendering, you can use your other hand to prop up your painting hand or use a mahl stick to hold your hand to rest, which allows more stable rendering.
In terms of what you can achieve with the brush, there are a number of possibilities. You can sketch with the brush, apply different thicknesses of paint, you can glaze with it, and you can also dry brush. And I'm going to demonstrate all of these.
When you are sketching, use a hard bristle brush and hold the brush near the middle to the end of the handle. Especially if you're painting from life and need to focus on the proportions and angles. This is really important that you're holding the brush not too close to the bristles. When you are painting a thin layer of paint, for example, in the initial layer of your painting, use a hard or soft brush and hold it at a right angle to the surface. If you are painting on canvas, you can scrub the canvas and really push the paint into the creases of the canvas. This makes sure that the surface is fully covered while keeping the paint very thin. If you are painting on wood, don't scrub too hard because it will dull the brush really fast. But the key here is to use a thin layer of paint and holding the brush at a relatively right angle to the surface. When applying a medium thickness of paint, you can use a hard or soft bristle brush. You don't have to scrub, but instead brush the paint in an alternating direction at an angle that's smaller than a right angle. You can still feel the canvas under the brush as you paint. If there's wet paint underneath and you're holding it at a right angle, you might be scraping the paint off. That's why when you're layering paint on top of existing paint, be mindful that you're not scraping. When applying really thick paint, you can use hard or soft bristle brushes. In this technique, you can barely feel the canvas as you paint. The brush is almost flat against the canvas, as if you're applying icing on a cake. The key here is that you are barely making contact between the brush and the canvas, and you're making the paint do the work. When it comes to glazing, I recommend using a soft bristle brush to avoid brush marks on the painting. This is when you are painting with more proportion of oil medium to oil paint, using a transparent color. This allows you to add a transparent layer of color to existing dry paint without covering it completely. Dry brushing in oil painting is a technique where a dry, soft brush is lightly brushed over existing wet paint to smooth out unwanted brush marks or to fuse colors together. I recommend using a dry sable brush, and remember to always keep it dry, wiping it clean after every stroke and wiping it thoroughly after every use on a paper towel. Never clean it in solvents. This brush must always be kept dry. Keep in mind that this is different from blending colors because you're not using this brush to mix colors together. The key to oil painting is not to blend colors on your painting, but to apply every changing color individually and using a dry brush to smooth it out if necessary.
I hope you all found this video helpful. Let me know of any questions in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.